to record so I can. Oh, sweet.
That work?
Thank you.
You're
Perfect.
welcome.
Thank
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so here we go.
I'm sure you know APA has a specific format for academic papers. That's what brought you here. This video will follow the 7th edition guidelines in Google Docs. If you're using Word, don't worry. It's a very similar setup. Wait, are you looking for the 6th edition guidelines? Then check out this video instead. If you're in a rush, we also have a free APA format template for both Word and Google Docs. Alright, let's dive right in. Hi, I'm Jessica from Scribber, here to help you achieve your academic goals. What's new in the 7th edition is that APA now has different guidelines for student papers and for professional papers intended for publication. This video will mainly focus on the format for student papers, but you can check out the article here for instructions on how to format a professional paper. Cool, now let's set up the basics. These formatting guidelines are applied throughout your paper, so it's nice to have it already in place. Set page margins to 1 inch by clicking File, Page Setup, and 1 inch on all sides. Now click Line Spacing, select double space for all text, including headings. Choose an accessible font, for example, Times New Roman 12 or Arial 11. Let's set up the page header, which is on the top of each page. In an APA-style paper, every page has a header, including the title page. For a student paper, all you need to include in the header is the page number. Click on the top of the page to open the header, click Insert, Page Numbers, and choose Right Align. For a professional paper, you should also include a running head by entering the paper title in all caps, like this. But for now, we will focus on the student format. The first page of your paper is the title page. For student paper, include these elements on the title page, in this order. First, your paper title in bold. Then after a blank line, the author's name, your university and department name, course number and name, instructor name, and the due date of the assignment. All of the elements are center aligned with title case capitalization and around 3 to 4 enters down from the start of the page. Next is the abstract. This is a 150 to 250 word summary of your paper. An abstract is usually required in professional papers, but it's rare to include one in student papers except for theses and dissertations. More about writing the abstract in this video. Let's focus on the formatting. At the top of the page, write the section label Abstract in bold and centered. The contents of the abstract appear directly under the label. Unlike regular paragraphs, the first line is not indented. Abstracts are usually written as a single paragraph without headings or blank lines. At the bottom, indent the line and italicize the label keywords : followed by 3 to 5 relevant keywords in lowercase letters, unless they are proper nouns, and separated by commas. There's no period at the end. Moving on to body text. Make sure to indent the first sentence of a new paragraph by pulling the ruler ½ inch. APA-style headings are used to divide your paper into chapters and sections. Use title case capitalization for all your headings. Level 1 headings are for main sections, like methods or results. This heading is centered and bold. Now for subheadings, Level 2 is left aligned and bold. Level 3 is also left aligned, bold, and italicized. Indent Level 4, bold, and add a final period. The text then begins immediately after this period. Level 5 is the same as Level 4, but also in italics. Throughout the body text, remember to properly cite your sources with APA in-text citations. After your body section, but before any appendices, don't forget to include a reference page. Here you list all the sources you've cited in your paper. On a new page, center and bold the section label References. The reference entries are placed directly below the section label. You can easily create and save these references with the Scribner citation generator. Then all you have to do is copy and paste the entire list. It's already sorted in alphabetical order. Format the references with hanging indents like this. Pull the arrow on the ruler to 1/2 inch and the rectangle back to 0. We have a more in-depth video on formatting the reference page. Click here. That covers all the basics you need to know for APA paper formatting. We have an entire playlist that goes into more depth on the 7th edition of APA Style. You should watch it too. See you there!
Okay, so I am pasting in that link for y'all if you want to watch it again into the chat. So that was just kind of a really quick way, kind of simplified it a little bit, because I know those of you that have done it are thinking, wow, that it is just really not that simple. But so what we're going to do is just talk a little bit about the different individual pieces of it. And then Dr. Perley's going to step in and she's going to talk to y'all about fixing a paper and about how to do group work, because we seem to have a lot of problems with students that haven't done a lot of group work in the past. So right now what we're going to do I have any questions so far? Oh, we're good? Okay. I'm going to, and I hope I've got this thing up. Okay, I'm going to share the screen and show y'all the PowerPoint, which will also be available to y'all. Okay, so this is a PowerPoint that's been put together through the ages by a number of different professors, and the most recent version was adapted by me and by Dr. Perley also, actually, just at some point. And so this is all came from the Purdue OWL site. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that site, it's actually a great place to get information about APA. It's very user friendly. You can type in, if you were to go to Google and type in in-text reference for APA, then it would probably pop up with Purdue would be the first tag that you would get, because they seem to have the most aggressive marketing. They get theirs out there faster than everybody else. And it's really a very good site. Okay, so as we're looking at this, if you look at the reference list, there's some basic rules. It's called outdenting. Those of you that have had me have known that, have had that message sent to you many times, some of you, that you outdent, which means that instead of indenting the first line, in fact, instead you indent the lines after the first line. It can be called outdenting or hanging indentation. So when you look at references for APA, then you're going to be seeing them. What you see to the left is going to be the author, and then everything else follows after that. And what I didn't tell y'all, just give y'all a little quick on it, APA, everybody when they start college now, used to it was just graduate school, you know, has to deal with APA. And when I went back and got my PhD at Texas A&M, I had never even heard of APA. And so the first time I turned a paper in, I thought it just had to be grammatically correct. And my paper came back looking like a Christmas tree. And because my professor just tore it to pieces he loved red and green ink. And so he would have all kinds of remarks on it. I was really mortified. So I determined that I was going to get this book they were talking about and learn it. And I did. But I'll tell you, the day that I graduated, I threw that book in my fireplace and burned it because I thought I would never have to do it again. So just not everybody loves APA. I know y'all probably think we love it, but we don't love it. It's just a necessary thing that you have to do. So when I came to Cal State Long Beach, they said, guess what? You get to teach APA. So I had to go buy another book. But bottom line is, that's what our department uses. And that is what you're going to have to learn. You're going to need it for reports that you write once you get out of school. You're going to need it if you publish any papers, if you go on to graduate school. It's just one of those things that you have to learn. So as we talk about this reference list, then you first off, be sure that you have it outdented or the hanging indent. Be sure the author's names are inverted, meaning last name goes first, and then you use just the initials for the first name. We get that a lot where students put the whole first name, but it's not. You only use the initial. So it would be, if you were citing something that Dr. Perley and I wrote, you would have Martinez, comma, space L period, and then you'd have Perley, comma, space R period. So then after that, you would need the date and so forth. So it's always last name first, and you don't put the names alphabetical. You put it by whoever is the first on the paper that you're citing. There's a lot goes along with placement when you're doing academic publishing. And the person whose name is first is generally the one who has done the most work, and it's listed under their name. Okay, now I'm not going to read all this to you because y'all can read, but very well, I hope. But this gives you a little bit more about how you need to, if you have more than one or two authors, what you need to do with the rest of that information, with the rest of those authors. And this has changed from 6. So those of you that were around and learned 6, this is one of the changes. Remember, it's alphabetized by the last name of the first author for each work. A lot of you went to some community colleges that used MLA, which was not done that way. So you're having to learn a whole new system. And we realize that that's a little difficult, but that's just what you have to do because our college uses APA. Okay, so, and then if you have more than one article by the same author, then you have, and they're exactly the same, in the same order, then you list it by the year of publication. That's how you determine which one goes first. And the first one is the earliest one, the one that happened the longest ago. Now, one thing that a lot of students have trouble with is, what do we capitalize in the references? In grammar, when you were in school, you learned that titles of books and things like that had all the letters capped. Well, APA doesn't do that. You only capitalize the title of the bigger item, like the journal title would be capitalized, but the article from the journal would not be capitalized, except for the first letter and the first letter after a colon and proper nouns. So if you're referring to books, chapters, or articles, capitalize again only the first letter of the first word and of the subtitle, which would be what comes after a colon. Then you italicize the titles of longer works, such as books or journals. So if you're citing your textbook, for instance, you would not cap every letter, every word, but you would italicize the textbook. If you're citing a journal article, then you remember you only italicize the larger part of it, like the journal, not the journal article. It's whatever the higher order is. Okay, and I will try to clarify that a little bit. So here's some examples. If you look at this, it shows it for you where all you would have to do is kind of like a little template. So if you see you've got the author and last name and then their initials, the year of the publication. If you don't know the year, is anybody in the crowd able to tell me? I can't see y'all, so kind of shout it out. What do you put if you don't know the year? Anybody know?
No date.
That's right, ND.
ND.
Exactly. Are those capitalized?
No.
No, correct. It's N period, D period, not capped. Okay, then it shows you the title of the work, and you see that it's italicized. Do you notice that work is not capitalized? Only title, which is the first word. Then you've got a colon, and the first word after the colon is capitalized. The rest is not. So now used to, you had to put the publisher's location, but that was taken out for 7. So you would write the title of the book, italicize it, and then you would just put the publisher. For instance, if you were using if you were citing the HCA 353 textbook, you would put the title and then you would put Jones and Bartlett. Nothing else. That's the publisher. And then the second one is an example for with more than one author. And so again, its first author is the first author on the paper or on the book, and then it shows that it is italicized. Now, if you look down below, it tells you exactly all the ins and outs that some of you may lose points for if you don't follow this. You have the author, the last name, then the initials. Be sure there's a space between the initials. People tend to just put, like, let's say for L period, K period. But in APA, it has to be L period space K period. So you have to put a space in between the initials if there's more than one. Again, remember the title of the work, you only capitalize the first word unless proper noun and the first word after a colon. And then it's italicized. If there's two authors, there's a comma after the initials of the first author and the ampersand. A lot of students tend to want to write the word and, but in APA, when you're citing it in the reference list, you use the ampersand, not the word and. Okay, then these are just some things, examples. For instance, a book that has no author, like the dictionary, it really has no author. This is the way you would cite it. With the date, what edition it is, and who's the publisher. An edited book with no author, then you put the editors as where the authors would normally be. But you be sure you put EDS after it so that whoever is looking at that reference knows that these are the editors, they are not the authors of the book. Then an edited book has the author's name, and then in parentheses afterwards, you've got who the editor is and then who the publisher is. Okay, then this is for a chapter or an article in an edited book. It's done differently than an article in a journal. You have to put the title of the chapter, then you say in and who the editors are, and then that they are editors, and then the title of the book, which, because the title of the book is the larger order, it's not the article title, but the title of the book that gets italicized. And then you put the page numbers of that chapter that you're referencing, and then the publisher. Okay, when listing pages in parentheses, a lot of students tend to want to put PG because that's what you see a lot. But for APA, if it's one page, it's P period. If it's more than one page, it's PP period. And if it's a book that is more than other than the first edition, you're going to put what edition it is. And then the multi-volume work you show the volumes that there are for that book. Are we good so far? I remember I can't see y'all. You're gonna have to holler out if you have a question, but I'll give y'all time to ask questions at the end also. Okay, a lot of you will be using online lecture notes if you take, well, if you take 417, 457, a lot of the other classes. This is how you have to cite the online lecture notes. This is a great example right here that you could snatch it right out. For those of you that have taken are taking 457, 417. Then they've got non-periodical web documents. That would be like a report or a web page. There's only one of them. Remember, periodical means that it's like a journals, issues of a journal, issues of a magazine, whatever it happens to be, it comes out periodically. It's not a one-shot thing. And then this one shows the periodical ones. And again, there's examples of it. I know it seems very overwhelming, and I can't empathize with y'all enough that it does seem like that, but there is so much help out there for you. And I'm going to give you some sites you can go look at the end of this presentation and some videos you can watch. I've also got the link, the paper, the Word doc that is a template just be sure that you, when you use the template, that you take out what they put in there and replace it with your information. Okay, again, these are just ways to cite this information online periodicals. Remember that if there is a DOI, then you want to use it. And you can see on that one by Drollinger that you just put it at the end after you've told that what journal it was, what volume, you know, what page, blah, blah. Then you put the DOI on it. Not everything has a DOI. Actually, that's just a locator is what it is. And it's very easy. You can click on that and it gets you straight to the article without having to type in the rest of the information. If you don't have a DOI, then you have to put in the information from the website where you found it, because it's not so easy to get to it. So as you see, it says retrieve from, and it has the website. Okay, newspapers, dissertations. Again, you've got the title of the article, then you italicize the title of the newspaper and the name of the newspaper. Then you've got the address that it's at. And then there's an example for you right underneath it that shows author, date, the article, and then where it came from, and the website. Notice it doesn't say retrieve from. Again, that's one of those quirks that you have to just see which ones APA wants retrieved from on and which ones they don't. Dissertations, some of you, if you go on to do research, will be looking at people's dissertations. You know, there's millions of dissertations out there. Years ago, I used to have the students for their exercise so they would know how to do it and make them hunt for my dissertation. And I can tell you that wasn't easy because Linda Martinez is a pretty common name. So, you know, you have, but oftentimes that is the most current work on something. The most current research is some dissertation that's just been published. So, you know, there will be times when you may want to use somebody's dissertation. Okay, then you've got online encyclopedias and dictionaries. Again, it shows you how you do this. You use the organization or institution name. What's the title? And then the title of the entry, then the title of the reference work is in italices. So if you look at the example, Merriam-Webster is the name of the who puts it out. Then the title was, or the definition, whatever it happens to be, was braggadocio. And then it shows in the Merriam-Webster.com dictionary and when it was retrieved and from where. Now, years ago, the reason you had to, that they started putting when it was retrieved is because so many things were being pushed up to the website. And then if people didn't put dates on them, they just stayed up there forever and they looked like they were current information. And so this shows, and now, you know, people have learned to put dates on it or things get taken down after a while. But this shows when you found it, because if someone, the main purpose of any reference list is so that if someone is reading your article or your information and they want to know where you got it, then the reference list tells them where they can go and read the whole article. If they go look for it and it's gone, then they can see that, you know, well, maybe you retrieved it a year ago if they were reading the article later. So they can understand why that particular article may be gone. Okay, then these are just chapters or segments of a web document or an online book or a PowerPoint. Again, it just shows you, if you look at these closely every time, like if you're doing an assignment for one of your instructors and and you're writing up a reference, you can go back and look at this PowerPoint and you can see, okay, this is the way it needs to look, the authors and the date and so forth. And if you do that, you'll be okay on your reference. Or you can, if you don't have the document, you can just type it into Google and probably Purdue will pop up along with a lot of different ones that offer assistance. But I want to caution you not to do the, or to use the great care of the citation makers, because those things do not work 100%. They may pop it out, you put all the information in and they pop it out, but then you got to go back and see whether it's right or not. A lot of times they'll capitalize words that don't need to be capitalized. They'll forget dates. There's all kinds of things they'll do. So you can only use that as a tool, but you really need to know how to do it, because they will not be 100% most of the time accurate. Okay, then electronic books, again, you have to tell them where you got them. Whoever is looking at your references, they want to know where you got it. They just don't want to see the title of it. So it needs to be very, like this one came from the digital library at UPenn, University of Pennsylvania. So it's very easy. They can just copy paste and find that book. Okay, a lot of you use online forums, and then we have discussion boards that we use all the time in most of your classes. And this is how you would cite those types of resources. Okay, then again, we want to add to the mix here, just make it even more confusing. Government documents have a certain way that you cite them. Conference proceedings also have a certain way to be, and you can see the examples here that they have to be cited. So everything APA is if any of you have got that APA book, you see that it's like several hundred pages, 300 or 400 pages, and all of it is all these different types of references. Okay, then after you've got through figuring out how to do references in the reference list, then we're going to go and look at if it's cited in the reference list, it must be cited in the text. So you can't just, what students think they can get away with is if we tell you that you need 10 references, you just find 10 references that seem to be what your paper's about, and you just line them up. Well, you can't do that. That you have to have, if you put it in your reference list, you must have it cited in the text, and you have to have it cited a certain way. So for instance, in this case, if you use the author's name in the sentence, if you said, Dr. Perley stated that APA is a lot of fun. Okay, what you'd have to do is put the date in parentheses after Dr. Perley's name, because you've used her name in the sentence. And then you have to have a corresponding reference as to where you got that information and in the reference list. Now, if you said it differently, like in this case, it's if you said research supports blah, blah, and you don't use the person's name, then you have to have a citation like it shows here on this page, where in parentheses, the authors and the date. So there's the difference between when you have to put just the date is when you use the author's name in the sentence, and when you have to put the author's names and the date is when you just talk about the research but don't use their name in the sentence. Okay, then in the current APA, used to it was more, but in the current 7th edition, if you have 3 to 5 authors, you only have to put the first author's name and et al, and then the date. Okay, if you don't have an author, you cite the source by its title in the signal phrase or the first word or two, in the parentheses. Titles of books and reports are italicized. Titles of articles, chapters, and web pages are in quotation marks. Now, this is what you're putting inside the parentheses. And then APA style calls for capitalizing important words, but not in the reference list. So again, be sure you follow the rules. I used to tell people to buy the book. There's even one called APA Made Easy, APA for Dummies. There's all kinds of APA books out there, but you can get that same information off Purdue OWL. Okay, in the rare case that it says anonymous, then that's what you use. In place of the author, you put anonymous as the author. Now, citations in the text for interviews, letters, emails, or any other person-to-person communication, you cite it in the text. That is the one time it does not get cited in the reference list. The reason is the reference list is for the purpose of people being able to go out and find what you're referencing. clearly, if it's an interview or a letter or an email, they're not going to be, we hope, poking into your computer and looking at it. So you have to only cite it in the text. That is the only time you only cite it in the text and not in the reference list. Okay, I harp on this a lot in my classes, and I'm sure Dr. Perley does too. You have to cite direct quotes. If you don't, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to get a horrible score and turn it in when you submit it through the Dropbox through Turnitin. The second thing that could happen is that you're plagiarizing. And if you're plagiarizing, you know, that can get you in a lot of trouble. You know, you might think, and you can even, like with Turnitin, you can even plagiarize yourself. So you have to even cite yourself if you're using something from another article that you wrote, because if it's been submitted to Turnitin, it's going to be considered already written. So always be sure that you cite the direct quotes. Be sure that that you have to have page or para numbers. We use para numbers when it's online because you really don't have page numbers. So you have to have some way of designating where it's at. Okay, now, again, this is where the source information came from. Most of it came from the Purdue online writing, the OWL basically, that Purdue puts out, has on the website. And this information was taken directly from there. Now, this is just common grammar errors that happen pretty often when papers are turned into me. Be sure that you use commas where they belong. And, you know, I tell all my students, write it in Word, even if it's for a discussion board or whatever it happens to be for, write it in Word, because Word is going to catch some of those grammar errors. And if you submit it in Word and I see that Word is telling the person that they need a comma here or they need a period here or whatever, it will pop up. Fix it. Don't turn it in. After you write it, look and see what Word is telling you and fix it, because that's points that you don't have to lose. Because all I do is look at it and say, well, this is wrong. You know, Word, I scan it first and I see what Word says and grammarly or whatever it's called. And then I just fix it. And I tell you, you know, to proof it, proof. And you can do that yourself and save yourself points. Okay, a real thing, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard for me. I hate it when students use the lowercase I when they're talking about themselves. Always cap the I. We've become a lazy society because of texting and because of email and a very, very lazy type of writing. And somehow that bleeds over to our professional papers. So be sure that you always cap the word I. I know that when you're writing a text message or you're sending an email, you know, to your friends or something, that, you know, you don't do it. You don't cap it. It's just, you know, it's just something that's not necessarily done. When you turn a paper in, you be sure that you're following the correct grammar. APA is double spaced. I get a lot of papers turned into me that are single spaced. Very simple to do. Just double space it from the word go. Now, indenting, we know that it's difficult sometimes to show indenting when you're doing your references on Beachboard, but if you're doing it on a paper, there's no reason not to have the proper indenting for references and the proper indenting for paragraphs. Okay, these are some extra resources, and I'm going to make this available to you that we discovered today. They're pretty new, including the one that that I just now showed y'all. Also, I'm going to put into this Dropbox where you can get that letter template and a couple of other resources that you can use, like the differences between 6th and 7th and a few other things. And I am now going to remove myself from being host. Well, first off, does anybody have any questions? I know I hit you with a lot of information pretty quickly, but does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Professor. Hey, it's Emmanuel.
Hi,
Um, so,
Emmanuel.
so I know I've already been traumatized with APA formatting before.
I know you have
Uh,
several times in my classes.
but I still have a little bit trouble with regards to like when we quote something like in text. So for instance, I know for a fact certain textbooks themselves have quotes from other sources as well. But what if I per se want to use those direct quotes that the textbook uses? Am I making sense? Hopefully I'm making sense.
I think
So
you're
like,
trying to quote a quote,
yeah,
right?
quote unquote. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of a gray area. Dr. Perley, do you have before I get fumble around a little bit, do you have an answer for that one?
Because from what I would do, I'm not sure this is correct or not, but I would place, I guess, in like triple quotes, I guess. So like I would do the double quotation, but then after that, I would place a single quotation so that I could quote the quote. I'm not sure if that's correct though, but
I think you're supposed to say as cited in, but
oh,
let's
okay.
see what Dr. Perley has to say about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think as cited in.
Cited in. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I would like hypothetically, I would say like, as cited in, this title of the book says, and
Correct.
then, oh, okay. Alrighty
Correct.
then. Oh, okay. Just making
Or
sure.
if it's a sentence, you could as cited by, and then you could say, because like with the authors, like
Mhm.
like how you would cite according to Roberts and Smith, you could say as cited in the book by Roberts and Smith, and then add in the date, and then the name of the book would then be in the reference section.
Oh, okay. Awesome. All right. Just making sure. Thank you guys so much.
If you run into that, Emmanuel, just send it to me, pop it to me, and I'll be sure it's okay and send it back to you. We'll conspire together and be sure we got it right.
And I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Professor Martinez, I have a question. I know you didn't touch on your PowerPoint, but it's probably because it's not really pertinent to your classes. But I was curious about the way.
That's unfortunate for you, Emma.
No,
Okay, go ahead.
So like if we're presenting like a poster, how would we cite like inside the poster? Would it be appropriate to maybe, I don't know if you have access to the chat, would it be appropriate to do that? Because I feel like if we just did in-text citations, it would be like taking up a lot of space.
Are you talking about on the poster itself, or
Yeah.
are you talking about citing a poster?
No, on a poster itself.
I would think that I haven't been asked that question before, but I would think you would have to cite it pretty much the same way you would if it was a paper. Do you know, Dr. Perley?
Yeah, I was thinking the same way you would cite on a PowerPoint presentation. It would be very similar. So in-text citation plus a reference section.
Okay. Because I'm asking because I usually don't see that like at research like symposiums. I usually just see it like that, but I want to know what would be the
Yeah,
appropriate.
you could be seeing people that maybe aren't using APA also,
Mhm.
because MLA is a little bit, MLA and Chicago style. Chicago in particular is really more like regular grammar. And so, it could be that some of the ones you're seeing are not following APA.
I was asking mainly because most of my like colleagues that I'm comparing myself to are from a psychology major, so I would think they have to use APA. But
Okay, well, it could, I'm happy to research it a little further for you, but I'm pretty sure that that what Dr. Perley and I were saying is that you need to do just like what you would, because I have not seen any particular rules for that would be different on a bulletin board or a bulletin poster.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It could also be that the people that you're looking at are just unfamiliar with how to use APA on a poster, and that's why the information's not there.
Okay.
Instead of them purposely not putting it there.
You'd be surprised how many people aren't familiar with it. And honestly, our department is pretty, we batter y'all pretty hard with APA and HCA because because all of y'all are going on to be administrators, y'all need to know how to write. So if we pick on y'all pretty hard about your grammar or your writing or those things, it's because we don't want you to get out there and be embarrassed. And we don't want y'all embarrassing us, because we don't want y'all going out there and they turn around and say, wow, how could they graduate these people from healthcare administration? They can't write a sentence. So we want y'all to be successful. And so that's why we hit y'all pretty hard on some of this stuff. Any other questions? Okay, Dr. Perley, let me give you the hosting so you can put up, do you have the stuff or do you want me to load it for you? You have it, okay.
Yeah, I have it.
Okay, let me see if I can. Jose, can you give it to her or do I need to do it?
I think you need to do it, Dr.
Okay.
Martinez, because you have it right now.
Okay, all right.
Well, while Dr. Martinez is transferring the hosting, I would like to just thank her for putting together the information that is usually in the course shells. A lot of the instructors use her materials, and her interest and mine is truly sincere for you to learn APA for your own benefit. Graduate school will require it, and so it is to your best interest to learn it. In addition to the grammar, many of you know that I used to teach the internship courses, and you're sending cover letters and resumes to get an internship position that you're competing for against many schools, other Cal State schools like LA, Northridge, USC, UCI. And if your cover letter is not clearly written, then you're not going to get the position. Many times in the work world, you are never going to meet somebody. It's all through your writing. And so it's really important to hone in on those skills. The other thing is, I think that is a very underutilized resource, is the writing lab. They're fantastic at helping you. They can help you outline your paper, check your APA, look at your grammar. Did you do your abstract in a summary format? Is it structured properly? All that sort of stuff. I believe that they still have Zoom appointments, 30 minutes if you make an appointment, and I believe the drop-in is for 15 minutes. So I encourage all my students to utilize the writing lab for every assignment. Everybody can improve their writing, and it is not something that just happens overnight. But now you have this kind of insulated environment where everyone is understanding that you are working on these skills so that they can be more perfected for when you graduate. One other thing I wanted to mention before I go on to my stuff is my materials is the Turnitin percentage. A lot of students seem to have challenges with decreasing the percentage. And the threshold for the HCA department is 25%. Dr. Martinez and I both have the same policy in our courses. So there's a range, 25% or below, you get grading based on the grading rubric and the syllabus requirements. 25 to 35%, the highest grade you can get is 70%. And 36 and above, that was 26 to 35%. And then 36 and higher is really a 0. The easiest way to reduce percentages is to eliminate your quotes and do paraphrasing. When your originality report is generated, you just click on the colored box next to your percentage number, and it will create an originality report, and it will show you what is being highlighted that contributes to your Turnitin percentage. And that should help you to narrow it down. The other tool besides paraphrasing is using a thesaurus. So when I write, I always have a dictionary tab open on my browser. I have a thesaurus tab. I have 2 Purdue OWL tabs, one for in-text citations and one for the reference section. Although Dr. Martinez and I are very familiar with APA, nobody can remember every single piece of it. That's just not reasonable. And so I always have those tabs up to make sure that I have a quick reference as I'm writing. So I think if you all can do that as well, I think it should help you succeed more quickly. Okay, as we go through group presentations, I've been learning and hearing from students that many people are unfamiliar with how to do a group presentation, unfamiliar with the rules and really what to do in the meetings. And so I put together just a brief PowerPoint presentation that I wanted to show you. We can go through some of the steps. Let me share my screen with you. Okay, is the PowerPoint visible? Okay.
You're good, Professor.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, whenever I do the slideshow, I don't know, it doesn't seem to work when I'm in Zoom, so I'm just gonna use this view. This is for team presentation. So just some steps for success. Dr. Martinez and I both use the group introduction form. I really hope that you utilize that with your team members. I think it's very challenging right now in the online environment to work with teams, individuals that you can't meet and chat with during breaks before or after school. So the group introduction, you can utilize that information to help break the ice. So it's important to identify what is the easiest way for you to be reached. Is it your phone? Is it email? What is that information? What is your schedule so that the contract can be completed more thoroughly. Now, both Dr. Martinez and I utilize the contract, and I really stress that the more detail you can put in the contract, the better. Now, I think some instructors aren't utilizing these forms, so it might be recommended. You could speak to your instructor to see if they'd be willing to let you utilize this in their course. But I think the information and the intent of the forms can work with any class. So with the contract, I really recommend due dates for everything. When is the APA check going to be done? When is the grammar check going to be done? It should be done as the semester moves forward. So it would be multiple checks. When are the meeting dates going to be? When do we want our first draft done? Who is going to call the meetings? Who's going to do meeting reminders? All that sort of stuff needs to be put in the contract so you can use that literally as your guide through the semester. The progress reports, Dr. Martinez and I, we require that everybody submit this in addition to the contract. That's so that we are very clear that everybody in the group is is on the same page in terms of how the presentation is moving along. And if there are any issues that somebody wants to bring up, maybe they don't want to do it in a team environment, but perhaps confidentially. So everybody needs to really think about this progress report. It's quick to fill out, but the purpose of it really is to help the teams move along in a smooth fashion. For the roles in the team, you're going to have a leader. We need to have a leader established to really take the reins on the presentation. A lot of people have never been a group leader. I would encourage you all to have communication with each other to say, hey, I've never been a group leader. I'd like to give it a try, or I have and I don't want to do it again, or I've never done it and I have no intention of doing it. And then you can float through it. So if 2 out of 5 people want to give it a try, then for a week you can alternate between the people. I think it's a great experience. For the other team members, we want to make sure that you're complying with all the responsibilities that are listed in the contract. The team leader really needs to make sure that all the due dates are met. So anything that you would do on a paper is something that you would do in a presentation. So again, APA checks, grammar checks, formatting checks, Is all the font style the same? Is it the same size? Even though multiple people are contributing slides, then is it one voice, or is it really obvious that the slides have no cohesiveness throughout the presentation? Those are some of the things that the group leader and really every team member should be looking for. The team leader should be able to resolve conflict, take the lead if there is some sort of conflict, and of course, always reach out to your instructor if it persists. And then ensure that the team members are attending the meetings. When it gets time for the progress report, make sure that it's filled out completely and honestly, and if you need assistance, and reach out to your instructor. Okay, facilitating communication, I think, is key for every team member. Many times after the semester, this is semester after semester after semester, I will look at evaluations done by teams, and they'll say, oh, I wish I had spoken up more. I wish I had been the group leader. I wish that that I could have expressed ideas. I wish that somebody was more respectful and listened to what I had to say. All that sort of stuff. So anything that's going through your mind was probably going to be going through somebody else's mind. So make sure that you have open, honest, not critical, non-judgmental conversations with each other, so that it's very open, and that'll help with your efficiency on completing your project. It's very important to establish a due date for your PowerPoint that would be maybe a week before it's actually due. There are many times in those evaluation forums, and I'm guessing Dr. Martinez has had the same experience, where people will write, gosh, I wish that we had finished a couple days earlier so that we could have checked things again. Or we ran out of time. Why is that? So, I would recommend a week prior to the actual due date that your instructor has established for your PowerPoint to be due, which will give you time to finalize that and also practice. It's very obvious to your instructors if somebody has practiced prior to an oral presentation, and that generally does negatively impact your grade if there is no practice that has taken prior to the presentation date. Also on your slides, in my syllabus, I have 3 to 5 bullet points. You do not want to have a lot of text on your slides. It's quite popular in some businesses to just use a picture, but then the picture requires a lot of practice and really knowing your content. I don't think the expectation is that high, but 3 to 5 bullet points with maybe a few keywords. Otherwise, what happens is the students just read off the slide, and then I think that also yields to a comfort level where there is no internal pressure to practice the oral presentation, which then impacts your points. So it's important to preserve time for that. So I hope that clears up some of the tools that can be used to facilitate. Good, I'm glad, Emma, to help move your presentation along in an efficient manner where there's not a lot of stress and not, wow, it's the day before it's due and we're just now getting it together. Okay, the second thing that I really wanted to do is illustrate a bit of college level writing. Some people will submit documents, papers, and they won't understand why we are taking off points for grammar. So these are some papers that were volunteered many semesters ago. There's no names on it. And I'm just going to go through a little bit just to give you an idea, a gist of how we would read, how instructors read academic papers submitted by students, and how you can help improve your points by just addressing some of these areas. Okay, can you see this paper, Ethics in Healthcare? Okay, excellent.
Yes.
Thank you. So there is no running head anymore for student papers. So you can see this is an older paper. And also, even though I took off the name, a lot of information is missing. So on that Purdue OWL site, there is a sample student paper, and I think Dr. Martinez also supplied that. The thing with APA that I find is it's extremely detail oriented. It's so easy just to miss a period. Apprentices, you capitalize something and you're trying so hard to be careful, and yet it's there. I recommend going through your APA if you really want to maximize your points, like 2 or 3 times. I'm sure Dr. Martinez did that in her doctorate program, and I did that as well. It's like a constant review, so that you can catch these things. It's hard to see errors in your own work if you don't review it at different times. So this is missing a lot of information. Here we have the page number in the top right corner on the first page, which is correct. Okay, so let me make this just a bit bigger. Okay, ethical issues in today's modern society are constantly being brought to light as we develop and evolve further as not only a nation, but as a human race. Does anyone see any errors or issues that might be happening in this sentence? For example, develop and evolve. Does that seem repetitive? It's a bit repetitive.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as we go through this, you'll see that I will be cutting down the length of the sentences, literally eliminating words. I think for the student that is concerning because most of the assignments have a word count. So the negative, there's positive and negatives with everything. The negative is that you're losing words, but the positive is now you get to show us how much you really know because you have all this extra space to write and do more research. Okay, let's continue to look at this one sentence. Ethical issues in today's modern society. Today and modern, also repetitive. Really only need one. Are constantly being brought to light as we develop and evolve further as not only a nation, so society versus nation, but as a human race. I might suggest an alternative way to write this would be ethical issues in modern society are evolving as our society does. Something along those lines. And essentially what that does is it gets the same gist across, but it essentially cuts half the sentence out. It's more clear, more direct. Ethical decisions are constantly being evaluated by professionals in all careers and specialties. However, for healthcare providers, it is a never-ending cycle. Okay, so constantly being evaluated, never-ending cycle. Okay, I think that's repetitive. Professionals in all careers and specialties, I think you can just put professionals. There's no reason to really specify that unless you were to list the specialty. So, and I'm not sure, here you're putting ethical and then ethical again. You don't want to use the same word to start a sentence right after the next sentence. So you could say something like, let's see, ethical decisions are constantly being evaluated by professionals in all careers. So I would say healthcare professionals are reviewing ethical decisions routinely to ensure whatever it is this paper is about, to ensure all stakeholders' interests are properly respected. So again, I know it's kind of hard if I don't type it out to show you, but I'm trying to show you keywords and ways where you can cut repetition out and make the sentence stronger. Our nation as a whole, Okay, our nation is a whole, so we don't really need to put as a whole, needs to prioritize the study of ethics pertaining to healthcare providers in order to provide the best possible care. So you could say that instead as, we already know we're talking about our nation because that was brought up here in the first sentence. So I probably wouldn't even mention that. I would probably say, in order to provide the best possible care, ethics needs to remain a priority, or ethical approaches to the delivery of healthcare must remain a priority. Yes, less wordy, smoother to read. Here, let's look at the APA. So whenever there's quotation marks, as Dr. Martinez said, we need to have a P for page number or a para. Here we have the page, 9,10. I think it should, Dr. Martinez, I think it needs to be 9-10, right? Not 9,10. Yeah, okay, so it needs
Correct.
to be,
And it needs to be PP.
right, multiple pages. Very good. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Arthur John Moskop. Okay, you don't need to put author. You can just put Moskop, 2016, writes, and you don't need to write the book. The book is listed in the reference section. So Moskop, 2016, writes, and then you have your quote. And then you don't repeat this again. It's already in the beginning of the sentence. So you just have the PP 9-10 at the end. Okay. Let's just do one more sentence and we'll see if there's any questions. See, now this sentence it's almost 3 lines long. That's a very long sentence. A major dilemma in our healthcare system today is that even for professionals, it can be a difficult decision to make in regard to whether or not a specific treatment will truly be the best option, yielding the best outcome for the patient. I don't know, that's complex. Let's say we can change it to current healthcare dilemmas include choosing the right treatment for the best outcome, or the right treatment for the best patient outcome. What was that, like 6 or 7 words versus 2.5 lines? And this could take going through the paper 3, 4, or 5 times, going back to the writing lab. It's very laborious when you start looking at your writing, at least that was for me, I think for most writers, when you're really trying to improve your writing and looking at every word, is this needed, is it not? It is time consuming, but it is well worth it to improve your writing. Because like I said before, many times in the business world, you never meet anybody. You just literally, it's your writing, it's your email. Or if your email is not properly written or clearly stated, you won't get the interview, you won't get the meeting, you won't get the business. So it's really important to do this. Are there any questions regarding college level or academic type of writing?
I'd like to add something to that about the writing for in the academic world when you're looking for, or in the business world where it happens to be, when you're looking for a job. I used to be the one who was the first person to look at all the resumes for professors that were applying for jobs for the University of Houston leadership department. So they would go through me first because I was running a grant, a multi-million-dollar grant there. And then I would vet them and they would go on to the people who had a lot more power than me. And there were so many that would get dumped in the trash can before they ever got beyond me. You know, things like, if you can believe this, they would misspell things in their resume. You know, I mean, that is really unforgivable to not, because that resume is the only thing that a person who's looking at you has to look at. That's it. Because, you know, you don't see the person in person, you don't have an interview at first, you know, it's just that paper. And if that paper has got errors in it, that tells me right off the bat that this is not a very conscientious person, because you just should never send out anything as important as that, for sure, with those kind of errors. So if you want to get past the first person, be sure that resume is correct. I have even had people have their name spelled wrong. You know, like it'd be, their name would be one way in the header and then it would be a different way down lower. You know, it's a typo that wasn't caught. So it's really important, you know, that because that's you, that's representing you. So be sure you're proud of what you put out.
Yeah, I'd like to add my experience with that. Most of you know I was a nursing home administrator, and when I looked at resumes, when I was hiring people, you would get like a stack for one position. If I saw any spelling, grammar, formatting, period, anything that was off, it was immediately rejected. It doesn't matter how good the paper says they are, the education, the work experience. If there's not that attention to detail, then it puts not only them, but the patient and the organization at risk. Especially in healthcare, people can die without attention to detail. And for something so important as the resume or the cover letter or the email introducing yourself to someone, if you're making mistakes with that, it just is very concerning about how complete your work is. Yeah. Let's see, we have a couple of comments. How do you increase your word count while trying to stay succinct? I tend to have repetitive writing, so I'm trying to avoid being wordy in my essays. I think that's a really great question. If I were you, I would write the paper as you normally would. And then I would go through with the help of the writing lab or a friend or your parent or somebody else and start cutting out the extra words. And then get a clean copy, see how many words you need to meet the minimum word requirement, and then start doing research, add in more references, expand on the topic. The only way to really add in words is to develop the content. So instead of saying, I like the color blue, right? I'm going to be short on words. It's one sentence. Develop the thought. I like the color blue because I find it to be very tranquil. It reminds me of the sea and long walks on the beach where I feel at peace. So right there, I've already added words just by developing that one. Why do you like blue? What is it about blue? So develop the thoughts, and that will increase the word count. But you got to get rid of the wordiness first to know where you are, and then you build from there. How will this video be accessible to people? Is that a Jose question or?
Yeah, I think we'll either post it on our YouTube or we'll also include it in our newsletter.
Okay.
Yes. Thanks
Thanks
for
for,
that.
thanks for joining us, Maria. Have a good evening. Okay, any other questions about writing, Turnitin, APA, team presentations?
I had a question.
Okay.
Could you let me know if I cut in and out? I know my Wi-Fi is not doing well. Oh, so I wanted to ask, like, what's your position on, like, students going to you to view, like, the PowerPoint, like the group PowerPoint? Because I know, like, as an individual, if I was doing my own project, I would want to go and check out, like, okay, how's my project doing? Would you prefer we do that as a group? Because I know, like, not all group members are going to have that energy or have that willingness, you know, to want to talk to the professors, but some of them do. So how?
Right. I think that's a tricky situation because the group presentation is a group grade. So somebody may want to go the extra effort and have it reviewed by the instructor. And I think if you do want to have it your section, your 3 slides, or however many slides you're responsible for, I would just ask the instructor and say, hey, are you willing to take a look at this? If it with or without the group, but keeping in mind that it is a group grade. Now, if you come across somebody who is not pulling their weight, and you're really fearful that it's going to jeopardize your grade, then I would go ahead and reach out to the instructor. Read the syllabus, see what the policy is that's stated in there, and I would do it that way. I don't know, Dr. Martinez, do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't, neither you nor I think do not like to give students a grade for something they didn't do. So if there's something, I know a lot of instructors will say work it out, but I don't know. I like to know, and I want to know ahead of time. So I don't want to know when I'm giving the grades, you know, that someone didn't do their job. And that's what happens a lot of times, is that at the very end, after the presentations happened, you know, students will come and say, well, we don't think it's fair because this person didn't do anything and they're getting the same grade as us. So if you're having that kind of issue, I know for sure that's what I would want. And I'm sure that's what Dr. Perley would want also, because you would be really surprised how we can incentivize someone to do what they're supposed to be doing. And then if they don't continue, if they still continue to not do it, then we'll take action to be sure that they don't get a grade for something they didn't do. So I think communication is what you needs to be going on there.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or concerns that we can discuss?
Dr. Perley, will you be putting the PowerPoint and sample paper in the chat as well?
The sample paper's there. I put it up there, I think. Is it not there? Because I thought I put it up for her.
Well, the sample paper doesn't have the edits in it. I just did that off the top of my head. It was really just to show you alternative ways to write. So if it's there, I'm not sure what good it'll do. Instead, I would encourage you to take a look at the writing, kind of take the same approach I did. Look at your sentences, and this is really for everybody here in the workshop. If it looks long, like 2.5 lines, then try and cut it in half. And then I would encourage everyone to meet with the writing lab. The other PowerPoint for the team, I think, yes, I see that up there. Dr. Martinez has already posted that.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure. Well, it's nice to see some of you. It's been a while. I recognize your photos from previous classes. And Dr. Martinez and I are very happy that you took the time to come to this workshop.
Remember that regardless of whether you have us in class or don't have us in class or whatever it happens to be, all your instructors are your resources. And we have an incredible group of instructors in healthcare administration. So reach out, and because even if whether you have them for an instructor or not, I don't know of any of them that would just say, no, I'm not going to help you. So, reach out. And I noticed Dr. Lawrence popped in here. He's gone now, but he popped in to see what was going on. And he's another really great resource if you're looking for someone to help you with research. He is an incredible researcher. So all your instructors in the healthcare department, administration department, have their specialties. And we all want y'all to be successful. So never feel embarrassed or afraid or anything to reach out. Reach out.
I'd also like to add on that Dr. Martinez and I, we understand that this is a very challenging time for many people because of the COVID situation. But I think that the pandemic has really imposed certain challenges that are unique for students. I have made quite a few referrals to the CARES department. I understand that a lot of students are unfamiliar with them, but they have fabulous resources. And they're just very extensive for students. It's completely confidential. You can reach out to them individually, or Dr. Martinez or I could do a referral for you. It's literally CARES. If you go to the Cal State website and just put that in the search box, you'll be able to read about some of the assistance that they can provide. But as Dr. Martinez said, your instructors are resources, CARES resources. You have a lot of places, the Writing Lab, the Career Development Center. You have a lot of resources that can help with a variety of situations to help you be successful. And that's really what we all want, is for you to be successful.
We're all COVID crazy too. It's not just y'all. So, you know, I sit and I look out the window and think of all the places I could go on a plane if I could just, you know, get there. So we understand that, you know, it's really more a case of incarceration than quarantining. So, you know, reach out to people. We're all, you know, everyone, you'd be surprised how people can empathize with you. Okay.
All right.
Anybody else? Are we good? Any questions? Okay. Well, Brenda, I guess we'll check out. Jose, Brenda, Tina, thanks for putting this together and inviting us. We enjoyed it. And you know, if we can be of any service, let us know.
Thank you guys for coming. We really appreciate it.
No, of course, thank you. And I'm going to echo off Dr. Martinez. You know, we're all family now. So if there's anything you guys need, you know, just we're all here. So let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, y'all have a good one. I'm gonna check out.
Thank you so much. Have a
Bye.
good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.